The Dyatlov Pass incident, a chilling mystery that defies explanation. Deep within the unforgiving Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia lies a place shrouded in mystery, Dyatlov Pass. In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out on what should have been an exhilarating adventure, eager to conquer the snow-covered slopes. But instead of a triumphant return, their journey ended in tragedy, leaving behind a trail of eerie clues that continue to baffle investigators and fuel speculation to this day. From their abandoned tents slashed open from within to the bizarre and gruesome state of their bodies, some with missing tongues, crushed bones, and inexplicable traces of radiation, what happened on that fateful night remains one of history's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. The wind howled through the dark, frozen slopes of the Ural Mountains. It was the dead of winter in 1959, and a group of 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, had set off on an expedition they believed would be challenging, but not impossible. They were young, ambitious, and fearless, eager to conquer the icy heights of Mount Otorten, a place whose name in the native Mansi language eerily translates to, "Don't go there." But they didn't believe in superstitions. Armed with their knowledge and survival skills, they trudged into the unforgiving wilderness, unaware that they were walking into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the modern world. The expedition began smoothly. The group laughed, shared stories, and took photos of their adventure. But as they moved deeper into the mountains, the weather turned hostile. Thick snow blanketed the ground, and fierce winds battered their faces. They made camp on the slopes of a desolate peak known as Kholat Syakhl, which ominously means, Dead Mountain. None of them could have known that this would be their final resting place. Days passed, and their expected telegram never arrived. Their families grew anxious. Eventually, search teams were sent to find them. What they discovered would haunt investigators, families, and conspiracy theorists for generations to come. When the rescue team reached the campsite, something was wrong. The group's tent was abandoned, half buried in snow. But what truly sent chills down the rescuers' spines was how it had been found, slashed open from the inside. Whatever had happened, the hikers had been so terrified that they had cut their way out instead of using the entrance. Around the tent, there were barefoot footprints, scattered and leading into the dark, icy woods. The searchers followed them, their breath freezing in the air, wondering what could have driven these experienced mountaineers into the deadly cold, without their shoes or coats. Then, they found the bodies. The first 2 victims were found under a towering pine tree at the edge of the forest, wearing only their underwear, their hands burned and raw, as if they had desperately tried to start a fire. Their feet were bare, their faces frozen in twisted expressions of pain and fear. A short distance away, 3 more bodies were found, lying in the snow as if they had been trying to crawl back to the tent. Their faces were frozen in expressions of sheer terror. It was clear they had died of exposure, but the mystery was only deepening. Months later, when the snow thawed, the final 4 bodies were discovered buried under several feet of snow in a nearby ravine. But these bodies were different. One had a shattered skull, as if hit with an unimaginable force. 2 had their ribs crushed, yet their skin remained unbroken, as if an enormous pressure had been exerted on them from the inside. One woman was found without her tongue and eyes, adding a grotesque layer to the unfolding horror. And the most unsettling discovery? Some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. What had happened to them? No one could explain what caused such a terrifying and chaotic scene. Over the years, countless theories have emerged, some scientific, some supernatural. Some believe that a sudden avalanche forced the hikers to flee in terror, and they succumbed to the brutal elements. But the terrain didn't show typical avalanche signs, and their tent wasn't buried. Others suggest they may have stumbled into a secret Soviet military test site for weapons, such as parachute mines or radiological experiments. Some of their clothing contained high radiation levels, fueling this theory. More outlandish ideas claim the group encountered something otherworldly, perhaps even a UFO. Other hikers in the area later reported seeing glowing orbs in the sky. Then there are those who suspect an attack by a Yeti or an unknown creature. A grainy photo recovered from one of the cameras showed a shadowy figure in the trees. Was it an animal? A person? Or something else entirely? Some scientists argue that katabatic winds, rare, powerful gusts, could have created an intense noise, inducing panic and disorientation, forcing the group into irrational actions. But none of these theories fully explain the strange injuries, the radiation, or the horrifying expressions frozen on the hikers' faces. Imagine this. It's the dead of night. The hikers are huddled in their tent, sheltering from the bitter cold. Then, something happens. Something so terrifying it drives them into a blind panic. They slash through the tent and run, stumbling down the mountain in darkness, half-dressed and terrified. Perhaps they hear an unearthly sound, an eerie hum that vibrates through the air. Or perhaps they see something they cannot comprehend, something beyond human understanding. Some of them seek shelter beneath a tree, desperately clawing at the bark to stay alive. Others try to crawl back to camp but collapse in the freezing cold. And the unlucky ones? Whatever force was out there found them first, leaving injuries no human could explain. In the end, they were claimed by the mountain. Despite new investigations and scientific research, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains unsolved. Official reports blame natural forces, but we are left with more questions than answers. What terrified these young, experienced hikers into their deaths? Was it something natural? Something secret? Or something beyond our understanding? We may never know. But as the wind continues to howl over Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain, the ghosts of Dyatlov Pass remain, whispering their tragic story into the icy night.